Hey, welcome back to Cause 3D, and today we're going to talk about the body of R2. Let's get to it. All right, so let's just give a brief overview. I mean, if you've downloaded these files already and you started working on this, then you are going to find that there are multiple ways that you can print this. You can print it in sections, in pies, 3 tiers. Each ring has a pie to it, and that's how I built the first 2 that I built, but now I have a big enough printer that I can actually print each ring, and there are 3 rings to it. So that's what I did on this one. A lot less seams to deal with. I can't even tell you for sure where the seams actually are. They're somewhere in these areas. But I've already sanded everything. I glued everything together, sanded everything down, did your normal Bondo glazing that I do on every project. And if you haven't seen me do that yet, you can go back pretty much to any project that I've worked on, and I go through that with a mixture of acetone and Bondo glazing, or I just hand do it with a glove on, a latex glove, and get everything as smooth as possible. That way, sand it, prime it, go back and do another coat if needed, and multiple priming coats on this. I mean, I went through, I'm gonna say three cans maybe on this. So built it up really thick, went back and sanded it again with 400 grit. So now it's pretty much nice and smooth, but we are to the point now where I've got to go back, and I'm having trouble seeing any flaws in this past the gray primer. So we're gonna put a base down of white primer. And the reason I do the white primer is it typically shows up more issues that you can see under the lights. And also it does give us a base for when we paint R2, the actual white color that we're gonna use. And I have just found that the final coat goes on so much easier if you have a white base to work with. So we're gonna move over to the paint booth, and I am going to explain this real quick, but I'm gonna hit this whole thing with white primer. I'm gonna let it cure. I'm gonna flip it completely upside down, hit it all with white primer from a different angle, because a lot of times you fail to get primer up in here, and there's no sense in trying to get your spray can up, pointed up in the air. So let's get over there and give it the first coat base of white primer. Let's go. All right, so I'm just using a flat white primer, nothing fancy. I'm gonna focus all of my spray directly at it or even down in these lower crevices. I am not going to worry about anything up top yet, so let's get to it. All right, so first coat down, haphazard, quick, fast spray, not really worried about splotchiness yet. Usually when I spray, I do start the spray and stop the spray past it. In this case, we still got some sanding to do, so I'm just trying to throw as much white on here as I can. You do have to make some special effort to kind of get into these grooves, because if your arm's open, you will see inside that, and the same goes for these areas in here. So I probably went a little thicker than in there than I normally do, but again, if we get a run or a drip at this point, it doesn't matter. We're still got to do a final sanding on this, just trying to find out any trouble spots. The more paint you put down on this body, the more lines you're going to fill in as you sand. So I am a big fan of doubling up, tripling up, quadrupling up the paint. It just saves time later when you're sanding. If you find a low spot that you missed earlier, then you might have to redo some filling, and that causes a lot more work than what you need. So we're gonna let this cure on the first coat, let it dry, and we're gonna come back and hit it a couple more times, and then we will go from there. This part is pretty self-explanatory. We are just giving another coat of white primer. I did multiple coats of white primer, probably around 3 to 4 as I was prepping for the sanding. And I didn't sand in between every single coat, but probably every other coat, just making sure that I get all of the areas and the low spots that I needed to. Now we're going to move over, after the final sanding of 400 grit, to the Rust-Oleum Satin Blossom White. That is my preferred color to start painting R2. And at this point I've got everything nice and smooth. So now it's time, once you get your final coat of white on there, that you can move over. I'm installing the doors here and the hinges. I'm sanding down my screws that go into the doors. I just use my random orbit sander so that I make sure that I don't get them too long that they push out the other side or do damage to the front of the door that you're going to see. This is quite a long and tedious process getting these doors on, but it's well worth it once you get them lined up. I'm moving over to the arms that go on the neck of the torso. Parts installed on that and just pushing the pins through, and I got a nice great fit, so I didn't have to do too much fiddling with that. Nice tight friction fit here for now with the center grills. Get the coin slots in the back. Now I've added some hot glue on the top of the front grills, just simply to hold them in place. I'm a big fan of hot glue simply because if you put it on your R2, you can always use some denatured alcohol to remove the hot glue without damaging your parts. He's beginning to look like R2. All that hard work on each individual part is finally starting to pay off. He's really coming together, and I have to admit, this is such a rewarding part of the process. Now we're installing the data port backings and the other port, and that's it, guys. It's not simple, but it is time consuming, but so well worth it to get to the finish line. As always, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you learned something from this video. I know I didn't go into detail on attaching a lot of stuff because it's hard to break these videos down. I didn't want to make it into a 50-part series, so if we glazed over something and you have a question, you know, you can always reach out and post a comment down below and I'll try to answer the questions. But we appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.